Hi everyone, here is Sofiya Fedyna, MP from Ukrainian Parliament, directly from Ukraine about the situation, about what is going on in Ukraine and how the situation is developing. This is the 14th day of heroic resistance of Ukrainian nation against the Moscow invasion, Moscow war that is being waged right now in Ukraine. It is very important to understand several points that are mistaken during negotiations and that are mistaken while doing an interviews for different international radio and TV stations. They talk about some conflict in Ukraine. They talk about the situation in Ukraine. They talk about that people die in Ukraine. But I think that it's very important to say why people are dying, why children are being killed, why the cities are being destroyed, what is going on in my country. And that is Moscow invasion, the invasion of Moscow regular army. And that is not the conflict, and that is not the situation. It's an open war that is being waged by Moscow Federation in Ukraine. Second point. Very often when I meet Moscow officials on lives on different TV and radio stations, they say that Ukraine was very aggressive. Ukraine was blocking with NATO. Ukraine was militarizing, therefore we had to invade Ukraine to stop it. And Ukraine, if it wants to have peace and if we want that Moscow Federation stops the military operation, as they call it, should become neutral and should demilitarize. Sorry, it's a bullshit. Because Ukraine was a neutral country in 2014. When we had the revolution of dignity, when people were protesting for human rights and democracy and open and free elections in Ukraine, Ukraine was neutral and was never asking for some possible blocking with any organization and any bloc. But Moscow Federation invaded us. So when they ask us for neutrality, it's total manipulation and lie. They want us to be defenseless. They want us to be disarmed. They want Ukrainians to have no option to defend ourselves. Ukraine needs to have a weapon, and Ukraine has to defend itself. Because as we have Ukrainians saying that is really true for the last 8 years, if Moscow stops shooting and shelling, there will be no war. If Ukraine stops shooting, there will be no Ukraine. Next point. I hate the point of the negotiations that are being waged with Moscow representatives. They say, it's very important that we reach peace. It's so hard to reach it. The negotiations are very complicated, but it's very important to reach peace. Dear friends, it's very easy to reach peace. Moscow Federation has to back off. Moscow Federation has to take its own army from the sovereign Ukrainian territory. Recently, I had live on Arabian television, and some highly positioned diplomat was telling me that in Mariupol, they had to enter the Mariupol. They had to shell it because the crazy nationalists from Western Ukraine are doing something. Have you heard the citizens of Mariupol? Have you heard the women in the hospital who were giving birth to children? And this hospital today was shelled by Moscow army. Please give me an answer. Who is a nationalist from among those children who have been born but they are already dead because of Moscow Federation shelling? Please ask the citizens of Mariupol whom they trust more, Moscow invaders or they trust Ukrainian army. And they will tell you that they hate Moscow invaders. They will tell you this in the best Moscow language. Next point. The negotiations are being held because Ukraine infringed Minsk agreements. I like this point because no one understands what Minsk agreements were about. And I would like to remind everyone. In February 2014, Moscow Federation invaded Ukraine. Not green men, not black men, not some minors, but regular army soldiers. And after that, they entered with multiple rocket launchers to Ukraine. And they started to shell at the beginning the Luhansk airport. And after that, we understood that Moscow Federation had felt that there will be no punishment for any invasion, so they can go on. And then we had Ilovaisk in summer, in August 2014. And there was a massacre. And we asked for the Green Corridor to evacuate people. And when the Green Corridor was agreed, Moscow Federation troops started to shell and to shoot into the defenseless people. And then the first Minsk was signed, somehow to stop the massacre. And then we had the Baltsovo in February 2015. And we agreed about corridor. And Moscow Federation again shelled innocent and defenseless unarmed people. And then we had to sign the Minsk II to stop the massacre, to stop the bloodshed. And these Minsk agreements, the Moscow Federation is referring to, that was a strike to stop massacre, to save people. But these Minsk agreements were not agreements the Ukrainians agreed to, because the only thing that we are agreeing to is to the demise of Moscow Federation. And that every soldier who stepped on the territory of Ukraine with war and with weapon should be buried in Ukrainian land. Next point, about that Moscow Federation is doing a military operation and that they are not attacking civilian infrastructure. The problem is that they are shelling civilian infrastructure. They are attacking schools, kindergartens, hospitals. They are attacking multi-storied civilian buildings. They are attacking people who gave birth today in Mariupol. And we have a lot of evidence. And yes, we started a criminal case in Hague. And yes, every Ukrainian, according to its own abilities, is gathering all the possible documents, videos, photos to complete the case and to give enough evidence. And please tell the civilians in Kharkiv, in Sumy, in Ochtyrka, in Zhytomyr, in Malin, in Vinnytsia, in Mariupol, in Volnovakha, that you are doing only military operation. And all of them will tell you a number of victims that have been killed because of shelling of civilian infrastructure. And please, just pay attention, all our international partners, to Bucha, to Hostomel, to Irpin by Kiev, when people were refused to get a humanitarian corridor. And when the Moscow army soldiers were shooting into defenseless children, whom people evacuated from the safe places. The next point, I do not like the discussion in my country about possible neutrality, about possible refusal of our Euro-Atlantic course because someone says NATO gave us nothing. Once again, undiplomatically, it's a bullshit. Because we understand how much support we get from NATO countries. Of course, we understand there is some NATO official level, but we also have the position of NATO countries, neighboring countries, partner countries, who are supporting us Ukrainians in our fight. We are grateful for weapons. We are grateful for humanitarian aid. We are grateful that you become a safe place for our refugees. We are grateful for medicine and for the rehabilitation of our soldiers. And those who spread the position that maybe we do not need NATO, that NATO was not effective enough, that NATO is kind of guilty that people are dying in Ukraine, I would say that this is a Moscow narrative, because Moscow Federation is killing Ukrainian people, and the only country who is guilty in this war, it's not NATO, not some other organization, it's Moscow Federation. More than 70% of Ukrainians want to be a part of Euro-Atlantic security environment, of security system. So do not listen to anyone who says that we are not grateful and who says that we don't want to be a part of NATO. We fixed that in our constitution to make it impossible to some manipulators and propagandists to change it. One more thing, what Ukraine needs now. Yes, we need no-fly zone. Yes, we know that official no-fly zone, this is the very global and very complicated decision. But we live in hybrid times. And I believe that in hybrid times, we have a hybrid resolution to this question. So please, no-fly zone. Second, Ukraine needs weapon. Ukraine needs bulletproof vests and casks. In this context, I would like to emphasize for everyone who listens to the stream, we are a peaceful country. We do not want to attack anyone, and we have never attacked or invaded any country. Moscow Federation attacked us. Moscow Federation kills our people on Ukrainian territory. And we have a right to protect ourselves. We need resources. We need instruments to protect our children. And we are ready to do that. I know that there are a lot of problems how to get all this stuff. But I think that we have to finish with bureaucracy and do something immediately. And I'm really grateful for the Polish Senate and Sejm, for the big Polish nation, for the decision you've done in these days, because I hope from Monday we'll get more possibility to protect ourselves. Yes, we need the overwhelming package of sanctions towards the Moscow Federation. It's very important to cut off everything that might supply their army. It's very important to keep Putin understanding that they will come back to the Stone Age if they do not back off and if they do not take their army from Ukraine. One more important point in this case is that all these negotiations that are being held show us that the demands are becoming smaller and smaller. And that means that regardless of shelling, that regardless of terror, Putin is getting weaker. His army is getting weaker. His commanders are refusing to attack Ukrainians. They did not understand Ukrainians, and they do not understand Ukrainians. And we surely do not want them to be a part of our reality. So we do not need to negotiate too much. We do not need to give a pause. We have to liberate all the territories of Ukraine and to finish the situation with Putin. And the last point, I'm really grateful for all the people of the goodwill who are helping today. It's very important that all the world, almost all the world, unites around Ukraine. And I would like to ask you to understand, I want you to understand that today Ukrainians are dying not only for their own future, they are dying for your security. We are dying for your future. In case Moscow Federation moves on, you will be deprived of your future. Moscow Federation will do everything to exterminate everyone who managed to help Ukraine at any time. And I think this is a high time to put a big fat dot in the history of Moscow Federation in this format as it exists. No to terrorist countries. No to totalitarian countries. No to Putin terrorists. Yes for democracy and peace. We ask you to make the possible Ukrainian fight for the democracy, peace and independence of the old civilized world. Postscriptum. Please send this video to those people who you know who speak English. Send this video to journalists. I'm ready to ask all their questions. I'm ready to stop all the manipulations. I'm fed up with Moscow Federation. And I think all Ukrainians, regardless of language and of region, are fed up with its massacre, its death against children. We might have survived the military invasion against soldiers, but those who kill innocent children have no right for future. Glory to Ukraine, and back off Moscow Federation.